Hello, I'm LaWanna Bradford, and welcome to another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk, where we sit down with leaders and innovators and unpackage what's happening in the world to give you tips, tools, and strategies in order to elevate you, whether you're an entrepreneur or perhaps you're in the C-suite. And I'm excited because we have a very special guest, none other than Dr. Joel D. Smith. And we're going to talk about his new book, People, Purpose, and Perseverance. Love selflessly, live boldly. I felt that it was very important that this book be unpackaged in a business forum because it's for you. You, the business owner, the CEO, anyone in the C-suite that's looking at how to navigate in this disruptive environment. Dr. Joel D. Smith is a former aviator, military leader over 30 plus years in both lanes, and his passion for leadership has helped shape many leaders around the world. He is also the author of the award-winning book and Amazon bestseller, The Leadership Advantage, and he is a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award winner. So we bring on this platform some heavy hitters, those that are willing to challenge the status quo. We're going to get more into his background, but we're going to unpackage this book and really dive into the strategies that you can use in today's environment. So we'll be back in just a moment with none other than Dr. Joel D. Smith. How's it going, Joel?
It is going quite well, LaWanna. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for joining us. Congratulations on your new book.
Well, thank you so very much. I appreciate it.
People, Purpose, and Perseverance. Love selflessly and lead boldly.
Yes.
That's a mouthful.
But it is well packaged, and it is a driving force behind what I do.
Speaking of driving force, if you can tell us, because you have your book from, I guess, almost 2 years ago, The Leadership Advantage.
Yes.
Is this something that is can be coupled with that, or is it a totally different perspective when you're thinking about leadership?
It is absolutely meant to be coupled with it, except this one dives in a little bit deeper, where I've broken it up into 3 sections: the people, the purpose, and the perseverance. And we tried to include a little bit more data with this one, some Gallup polls and some things from the Surgeon General as we went forth with this book.
I love that. I loved reading the Leadership Advantage and the whole scenario around the wolf pack, right? So we go from that, which it just, to me, just talks about the power of the wolf, the insightfulness of the wolf, the entire characteristics and how you can embody that as a leader. But this one now adds an element of, and not that doesn't, but really causes us to look at ourselves from a emotional intelligence standpoint, and how we relate from an empathy standpoint, looking at engagement, motivation, and as you said here, loving selfishly and leading boldly.
Yes. So if you watch a wolves ever, they're a very loving community, all the way from the breeding pair all the way down to this year's current cubs. Everybody is real loving when they're at relaxation or they're at play. But when it's time for business, they're strategic. Everybody has a role to play in the hunt or in the survival of the pack itself. In the first one, I used the analogy from Rudyard Kipling: the strength of the pack is the wolf, the strength of the wolf is the pack. We expounded upon it a little bit more in this one, in that we went away from the alpha and into what scientists are now calling the breeding pair.
The breeding pair?
The breeding pair.
Okay, let's educate our audience.
So the breeding pair is pretty much let's think of the lion pack, or you think of any pack animals. There is that alpha and that alpha female, the breeding pair as it was. They are the only ones truly authorized to go forth in breeding in the hierarchy. That male is the one that is allowed to breed with all the other females, so on and so forth. But everyone in that community has a responsibility to raise the cubs, to protect the cubs, and in short, protect the pack as the pack grows and continues to move forward.
So based on that, and to our listening audience, this is, even though we're giving the scientific definition and application as it relates to the animal kingdom, this is not from a chauvinistic lens. I mean,
Not
we're
at
just
all.
being able to translate that. And you mentioned the pairing, so they're the breeding pair to raise the cubs. So let's give me an example of how would that work in, let's say, corporate America. You have the leader who has a vision where we want to go, and you have existing workforce, and perhaps your entry work staff coming on board. Who's the part two in this equation of the breeding?
Well, I'm going to do something, man. Transition from military into the corporate space or into the civilian space. In the military, you have a commander, and in some instances, you have a commander's wife. The commander is in charge of the unit itself. Typically, we have a family support group associated with each unit, and the commander's spouse pretty much helps run the family support group. She's the go-to in the family support group. Why is that important? Because as the soldiers and the troops and the sailors and the airmen are out doing the business of the nation, you still have families that have to be cared for in the rear. That's where that spouse takes over and keeps everything trying to run. There is a rear guard commander that is military, but there's that spouse that is helping to manage all the spouses and all the families that are left behind as the soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen go forward. Moving over to the corporate side, same concepts. You have your COO, your CFO, your CEO, all these different O's, as it were, all these different three-letter identifiers, each one of them playing an intricate part in the interweavings of that organization. As you come down from there, you have your mid-level managers, you have your team leads and so on, section leads and so on and so forth. Each one plays an intricate part in the overarching family unit. And I say family unit as though it is a corporation or a business in and of itself, it's still a family unit. Because the one thing about family units is others can pick up on the love within the family. So let's say you go out to businesses and you can tell the air of how people are moving within the business, whether there is love or whether there is a scare tactic that's in place, where somebody is a dictator. It's my way or the highway. People are scared to bring forth new ideas. They're scared to speak up. They're scared to fail because you've taken the human side out of the equation. As a human, we are all subject to failure. And as a leader, you have failed many times before you reach the plateau. Are you vulnerable enough and authentic enough to say, I have failed, but I learned from my failures and I continue to go forward and I continue to grow. In short, I had a purpose and I persevered through this adverse moment and I continued on.
Let's unpackage that for a moment, if we may. So you're right. We need to look at each other as, human to human and not human to cog in the wheel. And in this environment, we're in a disruptive environment. It's not time. This is the lane. Things are happening at a rapid pace. And do you see leadership having to make those really hard, fast decisions where they may not have as much latitude as they did, let's say 3 years ago, 5 years ago, to get all the input and the buy-in, because things are happening so quickly when you're looking at just the evolution of business, right? The time between change is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And so how can that breeding pair, if you will, still maintain a humanity in the lens in which they apply and lead the mission at hand?
I absolutely see a change or a metamorphosis, as it were, and in that change is opportunity. As you know, any organization, when is the time that you need leadership? It's not when it is going well. It's not when things are running like clockwork. You need your leadership when there's chaos. We expect our leaders to navigate and help us move through the chaos when it occurs. The first step is the people, understanding that our people are not just line items, that they're the heartbeat of the organization. They're the lifeblood. From your people, you have to provide them purpose. If your mission statement or your value statement or your company statement does not resonate across your formations, your different sections, your different lenses, then you're going to struggle moving the organization forward. And then back to the last P, which is perseverance, just like I said, if you as a leader cannot help your teams, your people, your organization navigate the challenges, you are setting yourself up for failure. So my leadership and the leadership of any organization, whether it's from the C-suite and the CEO's office, all the way down to that one section lead that just has 2 people, your leadership is incumbent upon your ability to help your people navigate challenges. We're in a world of AI, and AI is coming through rapidly and quickly. The one thing AI cannot do currently is feel. We can teach it to do a whole lot of things, but as a leader, can I come down and take the pulse of my teams? Do I come out of my ivory palace long enough to say, hey, how did you arrive today? Not meaning how did you get there via transportation, bus, car, taxi, whatever it is, but how did you arrive mentally, emotionally? Do I notice those things that seem to be challenging to you? What can I do to remove one obstacle for you this week to help you do your job? Those types of things is what I mean when I say we need to be wary of all the fast paces taking there. And we need to be able to use those 2 most powerful letters in the alphabet. You know what they are? They're neighbors. They're the N and the O. And sometimes we have to simply say no. No, we're not doing that right now. We're not there. I don't want to have everybody pulled 4 ways from Sunday. I need them focused on this. And it's okay to have multiple focuses, but you have to manage that for your teams and your organization.
Now, what you're talking about obviously is, leading with empathy. We've all heard about servant leadership, but we know when it's crises or when it's rapid change, stress is at an all-time high. And so our decision-making ability, or realizing that maybe I need to take time and ask someone, as you said, how did they arrive? It's not the focus. You've got the board of directors breathing down your neck. You're concerned about mergers, possible takeovers, maybe getting word that the bottom line isn't what it needed to be, and you're going to have to lay off 15% of your staff. And I think a lot of individuals in leadership are saying, I hear you, Joel, but I don't have time for that. I don't have time to be and I'm saying this loosely, the emotional care provider for my staff. Let me ask at part 2. However, we know that this time in our global history is a time like none other, where mental and emotional wellness is of utmost concern. We have more need than we have care providers. So what do you say to individuals now? It's like, okay, I'm in this work environment. I've got all these external factors that are beyond my control. But then I have EAP that's like, I can only do so much. We don't have a lot, right? The employee assistance program. And now you're saying, stop and ask the person, how did you arrive today? What about me? How did I arrive?
It's called self-awareness. It's called acknowledging for yourself the ability to say that I am human too. I'm not God. I'm not a superhero. I don't have on a super cape. And the one thing about being human is the human body is a computer in and of itself. And the one thing about all computers that we've learned on many occasions, at some point in time, if they're not taken care of, if they're not provided updates, if they're not provided software firewalls to protect them, if we don't have antivirusware, just like those computers, your body will shut down. Now, when I say reach out and touch your people and go down and ask, I'm not saying that the CEO needs to go down into the teams or into the sections and find out all the things that's going on. That's what I have team leads for. That's what I have managers for. That's what I have area supervisors for. That is what I'm expecting of them. But we don't wait until it's crisis time before we do these types of things. Because see, now we get discretionary work that we normally wouldn't have. When we love selflessly and we give them that love, we get effort that normally we wouldn't get. We get that discretionary effort that they're willing to do because they feel like they're noticed. They feel like they're being nourished. They're provided a purpose, and they are able to navigate and understand this is how we deal with conflict. This is how we deal with emergence that we're not prepared for. It's not a surprise.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. And I think one example that I love is here in the US, the unfortunate tragedy of 9/11. And the one image that I think is seared in everyone's mind who was around then is when President Bush went down to ground zero and he was talking to the people. And I don't even know if people realize by him doing that and being in where you just had this catastrophe, and you're thinking about all the jet fuel and everything else, all the toxins in the air, that he went down there to just sometimes in emergencies and crises, people want to see the leader, right? They don't want you to defer certain things. They need to see you. It may not be a long time. Why is that so important? And what does it do to us as we're going through difficult times? And it could be a merger and people want to just see the CEO do a walkabout, meet him in the cafeteria or something as tragic as a 9/11. Why is it so important for us to actually lay eyes on the top leader?
It puts an energy into you that otherwise could be missed, an opportunity that could be missed. For example, and I like to use this a lot. I had a military leader, general officer that I was working for, and the difference between him and his predecessor was light years. And again, this is not to say that you have to be down there at every time something happens, every childbirth, every surgery, every injury, every catastrophe. But for your immediate people and those underneath them, it is often good enough to say, okay, we're going to take once a month and we're going to take 2-3 hours and we're going to walk around in this section of our organization and just ask, how's it going? What do you need to be more efficient at your job? What obstacle can I remove for you this week? And put a timeline to it, put a name to it, put a responsible party and or individual to it. Something that's going to give them the ability to say, hey, I've noticed, I'm being nourished, and I'm willing to go the extra when I don't necessarily have it. The second thing he did is I had surgery and I was on convalescent leave. I was home recovering. He sent a card. And you've seen the typical company cards that's got the typewritten message and the stamp on it that pretends to be the signature. What was different about this one is that he took the time out, whether it was 2-3 minutes or 5 minutes. He gave me a handwritten note, which says he was personally invested in my mind, in me as his troop, as somebody that was on his leadership team. He took the time out to just notice me, understood where I was, and said, the team has got your back. That's kind of what I saw when President Bush went down there. It's basically, the team, I've got your back. You are not forgotten. Everything that you're doing at this moment is being noticed. It's appreciated. And we're going to do whatever we can and give you all the resources that we can to support you in this effort.
I love that breakdown. And I want to give you another real world example happening here in the US. And we know that when all of the federal cuts started to happen, and then it trickled down, and now it's impacting the corporate sector. But let's just focus on federal. Individuals were whisked out so fast that often leadership didn't even know what was happening. They knew that there were going to be cuts, but they didn't even know which areas were going to be affected. And they were not empowered by, the powers that be to share anything. How does your book, or how can your book help someone who finds himself in that situation? Because again, we're talking human to human. We know that something's happening and you're saying, you're going to lose a third of your workforce, and it's going to happen in the next week. And oh, by the way, we need you to come up with a restructure plan, even though we've decided where the cuts are going to be. How can your book give hope to a leader today who may find themselves in that place to where they can be empathetic and love selflessly as they have to carry out this, this mandate, but then again, lead boldly, aligning to the mission at hand? Is that possible?
That is a very good question, LaWanna. And I thank you for posing that to me. And it's a very challenging question to address. Looking at all the things that took place over the course of the last year and a half in our government, as it was with our federal workers, chaos was running amok. And in that chaos, it was exceptionally challenging for those individuals that were in charge of departments, sections, even full organizations, divisions, corps. It was exceptionally challenging for them because their input was not only the soldiers, it was the federal employees, the Department of Army civilian, Department of the Navy civilian, Air Force, Marines, all those civilians that were impacted by it. And it was based not on performance. It was just simply based on, we're making cuts because this has become too big. And the comparison of what the departments looked like back during World War II or during the 40s and 50s during the Korean War to where they are now. Yes, the departments are exceptionally larger, but the footprint and the reaction in the world is exceptionally faster than it was back then. You didn't necessarily have the internet. You didn't have necessarily satellite phones, all these things where information is at your fingertips. AI didn't exist quite yet. So now we're looking at all these tools that supposedly can replace everything. I would hesitate to give a definitive answer on how people purpose and perseverance can help you, but I can say this is where the love selflessly and leading boldly comes into play. Bad news doesn't get better with time. One of the things that the leaders were hopefully doing is they were sharing this news as it became available, as this is what's getting ready to happen, allowing their personnel the chance to prepare, the chance to potentially make other arrangements for employment. And in some cases, the leading boldly, and I'm not advocating this for everybody, but the leading boldly just came back to those two most powerful words in the English alphabet, the N and the O. They said, no, I'm just not going to do this. I'm going to let you be the one to drop the hammer, lower the axe, whatever you wish to use, pull the cord on the guillotine. You do it, because I am not doing this to my people. And the people respected them more so for that than the fact that they just fell in line and said, you're gone, you're gone, you're gone, with no ceremonious explanation or comments to go with it.
Yeah, with that example that you said, there were across federal agencies, many top leaders just walked out. They said no. But I think your book gives us a little answer to the question in a way that it's not prescriptive, but it just helps you to assess if you're in that press. And you said here, love's 3 verbs at work. In the boardroom, love shows up as radical respect, listening until others feel heard, not just until you have a calculated reply. And even in a rapid change, right? Hey, these people have to be gone in a week or so. There is a way. How do we get mass communication out? How do we, like you said, trickling down those messages so that I, the top executive, may not be able to talk to every person, but they report to someone. So how do we, centralize that message? But this, I love what you said here. You said love's 3 verbs at work. Notice, see who they really are, nourish, fuel their growth, navigate, walk beside them when the path turns rocky. That's powerful, because I just think about when I've gone through things, whether it was a reorg or whatever, I can't really say that anyone in leadership was walking beside me. They may only be able to go so far, but that does say something that, this isn't me. I in trying to help you to adapt quickly to this change, because people went from being comfortable in their jobs, secure in their jobs, if you will, for however you can be secure in this day and age, to just overnight. In fact, I met a person, both he and his wife were federal employees, and both of them were hit the same day. And they had 2 young children, and she was pregnant with a 3rd. And I thought, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've had countless folks that reached out to me that kind of similar circumstances, but some that were even worse. They were going through medical emergency concerns, where now
I forgot about that. That's huge.
Now all of a sudden you're losing the capability to care for yourself, and you're making those life-altering decisions that you hear a lot of comedians and other folks say, but it's real.
It's real.
Do I put gas in my car? Do I eat? Do I take a whole tablet of my medication, or do I start cutting it in half? Do I take half a shot? Those were realistic events in the lives of many, many people. And that goes back to, I know you said notice, nourish, and navigate, but that goes back to the bad news does not get better with time. The fact that some leaders immediately started communicating, this is out of my hands, this is coming down the pipe, but I want you to hear it firsthand from me. And I need you to also understand that I'm not exempt from this either, because they weren't.
Yeah.
And some took it, like you said, a step forward and said, I'm going out the door with you. I refuse to do this to my team, my people, as it was, because they saw their people as the heartbeat of everything that they did. They weren't just line items on an Excel spreadsheet or a Google document. They were the lifeblood of everything that they were doing, because they knew they didn't get to where they were without the people.
Now let's talk about the other side of the coin.
Mm-hmm.
So you have those that have made their exit, but then you have those that are remaining, and the guilt, right, that's there. So thinking about the people, the purpose, and the perseverance, how can a leader, when you have a radical shift and change in your organizational structure, work with those that are left behind in order to have them re-engage with the purpose and press through with perseverance, understanding they are feeling for their fellow coworkers, but the mission still has to go on. What would you say to those leaders?
I'd given a personal example of my own where loss took place, and this is a little bit more extreme than someone losing their job. But when you lost that person that was to your right or to your left, to your rear, to your front, the mission still had to go on. We can't stop, because all of this is larger than just ourselves, just this section. We are still part, and a major part, of the cog that is moving this machine. So the machine cannot stop. The problem that I saw them having is, how do I continue to motivate you to do your job when all of this took place? And at the same time, you have in the back of your mind that you could be next. That was the harder question to try to address. And for me, it was more or less continue to perform. Don't worry about what's taking place on the exterior. Work on the interior. Do what you're supposed to do, and do it at the high level that you've always done it. Don't let anybody steal your joy. Don't let anybody steal your thunder. And last but not least, the one thing that I learned as a military officer, 32 years, document everything. Everything.
Yes. Well, let me ask you this. We're going to do some myth busting.
Uh-oh.
What do you think is and there are multiple, but you can pick one key myth that exists today that is holding back either most organizations, companies, or the entrepreneur? So whichever lane you want to focus on, the entrepreneur, because that's a little bit different lane, or the corporation. What is one leadership myth that you think is still holding most back?
That one is actually kind of easy. For me, it is perceptions become reality. That is a fact. It happens day in and day out. But the truth of the matter is, facts should rule the day. How do I want to address this? I put out a post a little while ago about manufactured truth or manufactured fiction versus truth. It's so much easier for fiction to be taken as gospel. It's comforting, it's calming, and in a lot of cases, it speaks directly to what we choose to or want to believe anyway. It's harder to accept the truth. Why? Because the truth forces us to slow down, to evaluate, to actually look deeper, to get to the meat of what's going on. Perceptions become reality has been used ever since I was in college. and probably well before then. And it's so true, because what people perceive is what they tend to believe. And when they believe something, they very rarely will go back and investigate to come up with the actual truth. We are rapidly encroaching upon a world that is totally immersed in manufactured truth, fiction, as it were, with very few people willing to do the extra work to get to the truth. Why? Because it takes longer. Fiction is ready, available. And what's so bad about it is a lot of times it's just so doggone believable, but it's believable because most of the time that's what we want to believe anyway. So as a manufacturer, a young entrepreneur, a young CEO, be very, very cautious about perceptions and be ready to combat it with facts, with the truth. Let your people know that they are appreciated. Let them know they are valued and how much you value their input to your organization. Active listening would be next. 75% of what we learn typically comes through our eyes, which in turn affects what we hear. Listen to understand. Listen to hear. Don't listen to respond. Understand that there's a difference. So practice that active listening. Be engaged. Look your personnel and your people in the eyes when they're talking. Try to get into their psyche and understand what they're saying. Hear what they're saying. Whether you agree or disagree is not the point. It's the point that you actually took the time out to listen. Mentoring. Succession planning is not just something that happens overnight. It comes with mentoring. At some point in time, most of us were mentored, so therefore we should be mentoring in and outside of your organization. And our communities is equally as important.
What one strategy do you believe that you communicate and translate in this book that's very different from what the masses are saying in leadership related communication? Is there something, obviously you're using the wolf analogy, but what strategy do you think might be something new and transformative for this day and age?
There, in my opinion, there's truly nothing new under the sun. It all comes full circle. There was a time when these things were taking place. We just didn't call them transformation. We didn't call it authoritative. We didn't call it vindictiveness, but it has always been there. How you lead, who you lead, why you lead is what really changes us. Am I an authoritarian? Am I a person that is dictatorial? It's my way or the highway. I don't take anything else in. Am I that type of leader that just gives a vote to the masses and I refuse to make a decision and we're going to make a collaborative decision? Am I one that's transformative, that it couples and espouses a whole bunch of different leadership techniques? You have to decide how you move forward. In people, purpose, and perseverance, I've given a whole bunch of things from emotional safety, environmental safety, to what is and what it is not, to, as you mentioned, the 3 N's, the notice, the nourish, the navigate. These are tools that are not necessarily new. They've always been there. It's just I'm bringing them back to light, full circle, as it were. How much more can we do if we take the time out to do these things? And we used to do the same thing in the military. You know, you'd hear commanders or young officers thinking, I've come up with something new, and then you go back and you pull out an old field manual or something above. You really didn't. We were doing this back in the 60s or whatever the case may be. But everything comes around full circle. It's just when it comes back around, we've added some new nuances to it. We've added a couple of new tweaks and twists to make it better. So the question is not so much as what can I derive from people, purpose, and perseverance, but what can I add to it? What can you as a leader add to it that is going to be beneficial to your organizations?
When I was reading it, I didn't see it solely as this, I'm just flipping through and doing an end-to-end business read. I saw it as where there are tools and tactics there that I can apply. And as you said, it allows me to look at these principles and strategies and then set them in my world. And then how do I respond to this? And that is what I think creates that freshness and relatability to those who are in this dance with you. Yes. You're very gifted in taking the complex and simplifying it in a way that is very much needed in this time of chaos. People need those easy to read sound bites that, like, I can take pieces of this book and apply it. I don't have to be strapped with, oh my gosh, if I don't apply all of these things at once, then there's not going to be success. You're showing, I think there's success principles along the way in this book, and that I think is your gifting. I love what I find very unique, in my opinion, is your application of the wolf. I think that's a signature for you. And I see this as a read that even, let's say if you're building young leaders, and I'm talking about those in high school, right? What is it? Like Different Business Leadership Academy, Future Business Leaders of America, that they can take this and really get it, right? Because it's like something they can see. It's got this really new appeal to it. So you're talking about, the wolf. I mean, I even see in my head, Joel, I see anime overlaid with this. I really do. Like, I don't know, you might have something really big here, video games or something.
Yeah.
You never know. But
one thing, when I talk to high school students, especially and young freshman college students, Colin Powell had 13 rules that he wrote down that he kept. But the one that I give them immediately is one that I think should be taught very early on in life. And that is, avoid having your ego so close to your position that if your position fails, your ego goes with it. And I always thought that was quite powerful, because he did an interview when he was Secretary of State. I don't know if it was CNN or who it was, but he did an interview. A young lady asked him a question about leadership, and he recounted a story of when he was at his basic course at Fort Benning, Georgia. He was a young infantry officer. And as they were talking about leadership, he had a NCO share with him and say, "Lieutenant, you know you're a good leader when people follow you, if only out of curiosity." That was so powerful. They just follow you only out of curiosity. So what he was basically saying as he continued on in that is, if you're hungry, you can't appear hungry. If you're cold, you can't appear cold. If you're scared, you can't appear scared, because somebody and everybody is watching. And they're looking to see what the leader is going to do next. Hey guys, we need to take this corner. We need to take this hill. We need to move through this tunnel. Yes, there's been times where every one of us have been scared about something, but we persevered through it. And a lot of times that perseverance is a lesson that we don't capture. And it's a lesson that needs to be captured and shared because it's going to teach us how to fight our way out of all these adversities that we're facing.
As a leader in your 30 plus years, when you look back, what has been what appeared at the time to be insurmountable challenge that you faced and faced successfully, and now you look back and you're like, wow, that was amazing? And I'm talking about from the impact or influence that you had on others' lives, right? Not the things, but the people impact.
One comes to mind immediately. I was stationed in Germany, and at this time I was the standardization officer and master gunner for the organization. And we had a young officer that experienced a terrible loss, terrible loss. He was going through it, found out that he had a son, and before he could get to know his son, the child tragically lost his life, was hung on a clothesline at the age of 2. Now you're on the other side of the Atlantic from the family, from your son, and you get this news. And the only thing that he wanted to do was he just didn't want to be here anymore. So I grabbed him before we left work and had him spend the night with me and my family, where he slept on my couch and I slept in my chair for basically Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, just so I could keep an eye on him. And it was the mere fact that somebody who wasn't related to him, didn't look anything like him, wasn't even from the same part of the country as him, was there for him, gave him new life. And he went on to get promoted on up the chain before he retired. He came over from the Navy, came into the Army, became a pilot, did a lot of things, and retired as a Chief Warrant Officer 4. And I still see products from him, and I talk to him every blue moon. It's been a while since we last spoke, but he's thriving. He's married, he's got his family. And I think often, had I not watched him, kept an eye on him, what could have happened? Because whenever you lose somebody like that, the first thing that everybody goes through is, what did I miss?
Right.
Why didn't I call one more time? I knew something was wrong. I felt something was wrong and I didn't say anything. That was one time that I said something. And because of that, I feel that he himself worked his way through that chaos, regained his energy, and continued to move forward and excelled. And it wasn't because of Joel, it was because of Joel being present, even if it was just to sit there and watch.
And that goes back to what you're saying in your book about loving selflessly.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just that presence, just being there. We are almost out of time, Joel, and I would like to turn it over to you. If you could take a few minutes to read something from your book, and then leave us with a lasting tip or point to consider as we are navigating these waves of change, because we need to remember it's all about people, purpose, and perseverance. Love selflessly and lead boldly. Over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so very much again, LaWanna. I am going to go from chapter 16, where I talk about grit, grace, and guardrails. Pace is a decision. I'm going to start with by the fire. Purpose is not a poster. It is a path. and paths bend. The goal is not to never change. It is to change on purpose. In the cockpit, we say that if you're not correcting your course, you're not flying. You're just drifting. Speed is dangerous without aim. Adjustment is how aim stays true. Why this particular chapter resonated with me more than any other. This book took me just short of a year to finally put together. And it was because I went through one of the most challenging phases in my life, and that I lost both of my parents. I lost my father, what will be a year here, 15 days from now, 4 days before my parents' 66th wedding anniversary, and 11 weeks later, my mother joined him. That was challenging. But it is something that is not unique just to Joel Smith. Now, how we deal with loss is unique to the individuals, but loss is not something that's just unique to one person, one family. It is something that we all experience and will continue to experience. But what it did after I took some time to heal, and I have friends and coaches as well, they helped me to realize that I needed to write about that chapter in particular. And I'm going to read two quick paragraphs from you. Over the last 3 years, my family has been in what we call deep snow. And you'll see that in the wolf analogy, what that means to be in deep snow. We started out caring and watching over 6 senior citizens and my younger sister, who was facing a terminal diagnosis, following the loss of my wife's godfather and my sister in June 2023. February 2024 brought about the unthinkable tragedy of losing our youngest granddaughter to sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS. By 2025, the snowfall became a full blizzard. I lost my first cousin in a horrific car accident. Then the bottom was pulled out from underneath my feet. I lost both of my parents within a span of just 10 weeks. In this kind of terrain, formation follows conditions, not egos. My wife and I had to rotate the lead constantly. Ignoring these human dynamics creates avoidable conflict and causes the system, whether family or team, to break down under the strain. It is important when you're loving selflessly and leading boldly that you understand that there's nothing that requires you to be out front all the time. As a leader, self-care is just as important as taking care of your team. Sometimes you do have to say, no, I can't be at this speaking engagement. I cannot attend this conference. I cannot do all these things and still be effective. And there are times where you have to bite the bullet, and what would have been 8 hours is now a 12-hour day. In some instances, I've worked 14, 16-hour days. But that in and of itself is not sustainable. Neither is you being out front all the time. Pass off taskings. Allow your people to show you what they can do. It's all right to provide course corrections, to provide a puff of wind to get them back on course, but allow them to make some mistakes. Don't want mistakes that's going to be catastrophic to the organization, but it's okay to make a mistake. And it's okay to let them know that you've made mistakes, but you learn from them. We taught others, we persevered, we moved forward, and it goes right back around. It's a circle. People, purpose, perseverance in Christ. Back to your people, purpose, perseverance. When you love selflessly and lead boldly, as I said earlier, you get discretionary effort that otherwise you wouldn't receive. I thank you for your time. I thank LaWanna for having me here. Please feel free to reach out and contact me, as the tape has there. You can go to my website, thejoelsmith.com, or contact Joel at j225ventures.com. Thank you. think you might be muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joel. Thank you for reading an excerpt of your book and sharing deep transparency with us. And I think even when we're thinking about leaders, it's okay to be transparent. It's okay to let them know, as you mentioned earlier in our talk, you're human too, right? You go through it, and sometimes it's strengthening when people know that they're not alone, that someone really gets whatever the struggle may be. So again, thank you so very much. I encourage you all to definitely go. You can get on Amazon, go visit his website, reach out to Joel D. Smith for Dr. Joel D. Smith for speaking engagements, consulting. If you have some issues that you're feeling that your team is facing and you want someone to come in as an objective eye to help you all navigate this changing and disruptive environment, Dr. Joel D. Smith is someone that you want to have at your table, as well as think about bringing these books in for your leadership team to read. People, Purpose, and Perseverance, Love Selflessly and Lead Boldly, and also author of The Leadership Advantage. And you'll learn all about the nuances with wolves, right, Joel?
Just a little bit. I won't say that I'm an expert, but I do love them.
Well, thank you so very much, Joel, for joining us. We appreciate you. And to our listening audience, thank you. We look forward to seeing you next week for another edition of Business and Financial Raw Talk. And remember that in life and in business, when your vision intersects with opportunity, success is inevitable. Bye for now.